This overview of the Texas Apartment Association lease will cover key components of the lease document.
It is meant to help you understand the major parts of your TAA lease so that you feel more informed and comfortable with what you're signing.
This video is only intended as a general explanation and not as legal advice, nor is it a substitution for reading the full lease. Parties and lease details. Parties. The two parties to the agreement are us, the owner, and you, the resident. Generally speaking, every adult living in the rental unit should be a party to the lease. Children and some adults who are dependents, such as an elderly parent, should be listed as occupants. The terms you and your refer to all residents. Lease details. The lease details section on page 1 is intended to provide a transparent, clear look at the important terms and dollar amounts related to the lease. It includes space for us to add and describe charges. Each box in the lease details section relates to provisions in the lease. Let's take a closer look at what's included in the lease details section. Box A, Apartment, Paragraph 2. You agree to lease the apartment listed in Box A for use as a private residence only. Measurements and representations are two sections to acknowledge that some details of the property or unit could change.
This helps ensure that there are no misunderstandings if measurements or features differ slightly.
Box B, Initial Lease Term. The initial lease term begins and ends on the dates provided in Box B. Box C, Monthly Base Rent, Paragraphs 3 and 1.6.
Your monthly rent includes your monthly base rent plus any additional monthly recurring fixed charges outlined in Box L.
You agree you will pay the rent on or before the first day of each month, the due date, without demand. Box D, Prorated Rent. The amount of prorated rent due if you move in after the first of the month may be listed in Box D. Box E, Security Deposit, Paragraph 5. The security deposit amount will be included in Box E. It does not include any animal deposit, which would be included in an animal addendum. We may deduct from the security deposit any amount due under the lease in accordance with the community policies and as allowed by law. Box F, Notice of Termination or Intent to Move Out. Paragraph 4. The lease automatically renews on a month-to-month basis unless either we or you give written notice of termination or intent to move out. We will specify the number of days written notice that is required at the end of the term or renewal period in Box F.
Your notice must be given in writing. Verbal notice is not enough.
Box G, Late Fees, Paragraph 3.3. You will pay late fees as outlined in Box G if your rent isn't paid on time. Box H, Returned Check or Rejected Payment Fee. Paragraph 3.4. You will be charged the fees listed in Box H for each returned check or rejected electronic payment, plus initial and daily late fees, if applicable, until full payment is received. Box I, Reletting Charge, Paragraph 7.1.
A reletting charge may apply if you break your lease or are in default. This charge helps cover the administrative costs of re-renting the unit.
The reletting charge will not be more than 85% of your highest monthly rent during the lease term and does not cancel your lease or any obligations you have under it. Box J, Early Termination Fee, Paragraph 7.2.
If amounts are filled in, then this section applies. and you may exercise the option to terminate the lease early if you are not in default, give notice, and pay the fees and rent as outlined in the lease.
If any values or number of days are left blank or are 0, then this section does not apply. Box K, Animal Violation Charges, Paragraph 12.2. An initial charge not to exceed $100 per animal and a daily charge not to exceed $10 per day per animal may be listed in Box K for violations of the animal restrictions in the lease or community policies. Insurance Violation Charge, Master Lease Addendum or Separate Addenda. This amount is what you must pay if you do not buy and maintain a liability insurance policy during the entire lease term and any renewal periods for the liability amount included in Box N of lease details.
These charges are avoidable by following the animal and insurance requirements.
Box L, Additional Rent, Monthly Recurring Fixed Charges. You agree to pay for additional monthly recurring fixed charges as outlined in Box L and/or in separate addenda, special provisions, or an amendment to the lease. Box M, Other Variable Charges. You agree to pay for certain utilities, utility billing fees, and other items as outlined in separate addenda, special provisions, or an amendment to the lease. A utility connection charge or transfer fee not to exceed $50 to be paid within 5 days of written notice may be charged in certain situations. Review your full lease package, including any additional addenda related to billing for various utilities and other costs, some of which may be required by state or federal law. Box N, Other Charges and Requirements. You agree to pay separately for initial or additional replacement access devices, as specified in this section. You also agree to buy and maintain a liability insurance policy during the entire lease term and any renewal periods for the liability amount specified. Special Provisions, Paragraph 32.
Review any special provisions included in your lease before signing. Special provisions can change what's in the main lease, so always read them carefully.
Now, let's look at the second page of your lease and the Lease Terms and Conditions section. While this video doesn't go through every paragraph in detail, here are some of the highlights of this section. Important reminder: closely review any community policies, addenda, and special provisions provided by us, since those become part of your lease package. Paragraph 1. Definitions. This section defines key terms of the lease, including the definitions of community policies, rent, and the lease. Paragraph 3. Rent. Paragraph 3 includes important details related to your rent. We may also provide additional details about how and where you should pay rent. Paragraph 6. Insurance. You must have liability insurance as specified in community policies or other addenda unless otherwise prohibited by law. Liability insurance does not cover your belongings in the event of theft, fire, flood damage, or other loss.
If you or we suffer a loss, then you have insurance covering the apartment or your personal belongings. You will request and obtain from your insurance carrier a waiver of its subrogation rights.
We may also use an addendum or special provision to make other choices about insurance.
Provisions that address your rights and responsibilities as our resident are covered in the Resident Life section, beginning on page 3. Resident Life.
Your property may have specific provisions in community policies, special provisions, or other addenda, all of which become part of your lease. Paragraph 10. Community policies. Community policies can be changed during the lease term.
as long as policies meet certain parameters. Unless we give prior written consent, guests are not allowed in the dwelling more than 2 days in 1 week or 4 days in any 1 month. TAA's master lease addendum may be used as part of the lease to consolidate important policies into one addendum. Be sure to review your entire lease, including any community policies and addenda.
Paragraph 11. Prohibited conduct. Prohibited conduct outlines conduct that is not allowed.
Examples include disruptive behavior, dangerous activity, or smoking in prohibited areas. Check your community policies for specifics. Lease violations related to prohibited conduct can result in eviction. Be sure to read and follow the conduct guidelines in this section.
Paragraph 13. Parking. Parking is covered in this paragraph. We also may have specific rules related to parking and could provide those in an addendum. Paragraph 15. Requests, repairs, and malfunctions. All requests, including repair requests, must be submitted in accordance with community policies.
Please note how we ask you to submit requests. Submitting requests the way we outline helps us track and complete repairs as quickly as possible. Paragraph 16. Our right to terminate for damage or closure. In the event that damage to the unit or building occurs and your personal property poses a health or safety hazard or impedes our ability to make repairs, we may remove, store, or dispose of such property.
Paragraph 17. Assignments and subletting. You may not sublease your dwelling or list any part of it on any lodging or short-term rental website unless we've agreed in advance.
This protects the safety and security of the community and helps ensure all residents are properly screened.
On page 5, your lease addresses what happens if you are in default and we exercise our option to evict you, as well as what you should do at the end of your lease term.
Paragraph 21. Notices. If you violate the lease or fail to meet your obligations, you may be in default. This section explains the types of notices, how they are delivered, and what steps may follow. Notices required by law, like a notice to vacate or a notice to pay rent or vacate, may be sent by email if allowed by law, and if your lease or addenda say so. They may also be sent by phone or by delivery to your physical address. You agree that electronic or email notices may include a notice to vacate or a notice to pay rent or vacate. You also agree that the email address you provided in the rental application process or any other email address you have used to communicate with us may be used for all notices under this lease. You may update your email address at any time by giving us written notice of the new email address. Eviction and remedies.
Paragraph 22. Liability. You and any other residents in your dwelling are both individually and jointly responsible for your obligations under the lease. If you or any guest or occupant violates the lease or community policies, all residents are considered to have violated the lease. Paragraph 23. Default by resident. This section defines default and describes our remedies when you are in default of any provision in your lease. If you violate the lease, you could be subject to eviction.
This section also covers types of notices, delivery methods, including email and other electronic means allowed by law, notice periods, and electronic court appearances.
End of lease term. Paragraphs 25, 26, and 27. Move-out notice, move-out procedures, and surrender and abandonment. Your lease renews automatically unless you provide notice as outlined in the lease. Paragraph 26 discusses what you should do when moving out. Paragraph 27 outlines what occurs if you surrender or abandon the unit.
Following the move-out procedures helps ensure a smooth transition and timely processing of your security deposit.
The last section of the lease, General Provisions and Signatures, is on page 6. General Provisions and Signatures. Paragraph 32. Special Provisions. Any special provisions and additional addenda, including community policies, are part of the lease, must be followed, and will replace any conflicting provisions in the lease. Once signed, you are bound by this lease, which is the entire agreement between us.
If you have questions about any part of your lease, ask us before signing. We're here to help. Key takeaways. Read the full lease, community policies, and addenda. These are all part of your agreement. Know your notice requirements, including how and where notices can be sent. Rent equals base rent plus any reoccurring charges listed in the lease details section. Ask questions if anything is unclear. We're here to help.
This video is only intended to give you a basic overview. There may be additional company or property-specific information to cover. Be sure you read and understand the entire lease before signing.